Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we are going to be talking once again about roster building. We recently made a video that talked about some principles, some rules, some tips when you're looking at building your roster, but we didn't really get down into the nitty-gritty of what squads are good, what squads are bad, which ones are okay, and how you should really prioritize that. Again, we gave principles like, aim high first, and for anyone who watched the videos, I should have it up in that corner. I think that's how that works. But what I actually want to dig into now, and this is something I'll probably try to do every 3 months, is showing where all the squads in the game currently rank as far as GAC goes. We might make a comment about TW, we might make a comment about Conquest, but for the most part, that's where our focus is going to be. One other thing before we do start as well, we are not going to be talking about Galactic Legends. Two reasons for that. Number one, they're the best. Don't really need to address it. It's not really controversial at all. And number two, not everyone has all six. In fact, the vast majority of the player base doesn't have all six. I don't have all six. So we're going to be talking about actually those teams and those factions, but without the Galactic Legends, so that we can give kind of a fuller idea. Like we're gonna, spoiler alert for the air tier teams. We're going to actually be looking at Padcat because that is a squad you can build without having to build a Galactic Legend. And there's going to be teams like that all throughout this. Maul is another good example. I guess the Jedi Knight Revan Jedi Luke is a good example of how you use these really good characters without the Galactic Legends, because again, that really kind of limits what we can do. That being said, let's go ahead and get started off with I guess this is our S tier. This is the strongest characters, the highest ones out there that are just really good, and if you have access to them, should be priority number one for GAC. Obviously, don't just abandon whatever project you're working on right now. There's a lot of things that go factor into roster building than just the team being good or the team being better than X, but these are teams that really are going to get the most bang for your buck the quickest, and that is Starkiller and Malgus. I mean, this one was really honestly easy to build. They are essentially pseudo-galactic legends. What do I mean by that? I mean that they typically don't have the strength of a galactic legend, but when you give the character, or the team rather, certain omicrons, they're elevated to a point where they're not just beating galactic legends, but to be beat, you have to use a specific galactic legend with a specific comp. This became very clear when we saw Starkiller in 3v3. You couldn't just throw a galactic legend at him and put it on auto. Like if you use C against him and link the two wrong characters, you lost. You threw in JMK without Cat, you lost. We saw it with Malgus in 3v3 as well. People kept trying to use Lord Vader against him and he just didn't die because his kit's that good. He's at that level. Malgus still has yet to be seen a little bit in 5v5, so this might change later the next time we do this video, but right now, the two of them really are top priority. They are our S-class. They're the only two there. Now we're going to be moving into really what I consider the GAC meta. These next 8 teams, they're all super important. They are very good, and really what qualifies them, what allows them to be in here, is the fact that they all, in some circumstances with the right modding, right comp, etc., have opportunities to challenge Galactic Legends. That really is what is going to classify the A tier teams. Gas is in here, absolutely fantastic, really hard to take down. There's also going to be a little give and take between all the teams, and these aren't ranked in any specific order, like this isn't this because Gas is better than Maul, even though it's probably true. But basically, these are the teams that have a shot at beating Galactic Legends. Maul, this is the pretty classic team that'll beat C without Malik. It's very good. Gas, it can beat Lord Vader if he doesn't have vaults. He can also beat some JML comps. CLS is here. CLS is really, really great. We used him to 65 banner someone's Bash the JML a few seasons ago. That was a lot of fun. Jedi Luke and Jedi Revan, this is probably the most common and popular off-meta counter that is used against SLKR. Grievous has a lot of really good shots at both C and JML, given the teams are right. Imp Troopers, they do fantastic against SLKR when they don't have Hux, or at least it's not first order, so you can build your buffs against them. And we're gonna stop on a few of these to talk about them a little more. The next one is Padme Cat. This one is so good. The vast majority of the game, or at least the vast majority of the game of people that I play with, don't use this team a lot because as soon as you get JMK, this team, for the most part, in my opinion, should just disappear. You're going to remove Grandmaster Yoda here. You're going to slot in Jedi Master Kenobi as the leader, and then the team remains fantastic, very, very good. But this team, for the most part, dies. But you know, Datacrons aside, and we're not really going to be talking about Datacrons today. I should have said that probably towards the beginning. This team has potential to beat a lot of Galactic Legends. I've seen it pretty reliably beat JMK if you have the modding right and everything. I've seen it beat C. I don't believe I've seen it beat Ray. I think I once saw it beat SLK, so it has a lot of potential. If we were ranking these by, you know, overall capability, it might actually be first. It is a very good team. Cat allows Padme to do some really stupid stuff, both between her insta-kill and along with the stat boosts. Next one up is Fennec. Again, this is probably one of the more popular off-meta counters right now because she just has Lord Vader's number. It's not 100%, and really most of these counters, by the way, are not 100%. They are soft counters, they are outside shots, but they do more often than not get an opportunity to do that, and that's really why they're ranked in this high. So again, first S tier are pseudo-galactic legends, and then we have these group of 8 here that are also really, really good. And now moving into the B teams. This one, these teams are very good. I think there's been a little bit of stigma, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but there's been a little bit of negativity towards B teams. Like when a team comes out, and one of the ways that we say that it sucks is we say that it's a B team, or like, I don't need another B team. These teams are not only very good, but also very important. If you're in Kyber, doesn't matter which one, but if you're in Kyber, you need about 22 teams, I believe, 11 for defense, 11 for offense. If we do some quick math here, we can see that you're only getting 10 teams between the S tier as well as the A tier. You need 22, so realistically, every single team that is in here is not only good or okay in some situations, but they are important and crucial. And this is where things are going to get a little hairy because I don't have all of these teams. My priorities, as you guys can see, was gearing up the higher A tier teams, and some of these are also just newer, as well as these teams right here. But the B tier list, very similar to how the main characteristic of the A tier teams was to counter Galactic Legends. The main characteristic of a B tier team is that they can beat A tier teams. Like, that's when you talk about some of these teams and say this is a good counter, like this is a good trade, which is really ultimately what GEC comes down to, is you making better trades than your opponent. That's what really marks them. So Bad Batch, very, very good example. Bad Batch has a pretty good shot at beating a lot of these teams. They really destroy Grievous. If you go before Troopers, you also beat them. They have a chance at beating Padme as well. They have a wide variety of things they can do. They do start to become a little bit more nuanced in the sense that it comes down to mods and gear and turn order. And this one it's really, really specific here with Echo. Echo really wants to be as fast as you can make him. There really isn't a ceiling, especially with the way the speed has changed right now. Mine's 370. I would like him to be higher. He can't be. I'm limited. It is what it is, but it's still a very good team. Next up is going to be Wampa. He's going to be the only solo character we have here. He's very, very good. He does have some very clear weaknesses, which is really why he's not in the A tier team. Anything that has tenacity down or an irresistible debuff that just stops him, Malak Sphere is a very good example of that. Tenacity down, or just really high potency stuns right off the bat from Mara Jade or Iden, they can really stop him. But he's very, very good. Like, he beats a wide variety of teams, not only in the A tier team list, but also throughout B and C as well. He's very versatile, especially in 3v3 when people don't specifically set anti-Wampa boards. Next up is Bam. Bam is really, really good. He doesn't really have potential, again, outside of Datacrons, to beat Galactic Legends, but he still can beat a lot of the higher tier teams. Mon Mothma falls in a very similar category. She has an outside shot at beating a lot of these teams. One of the big things that comes into that, again, similar to Bad Batch, is you really got to have Kyle Katarn go first right off the bat to be able to take them down. Qui-Gon Jinn, very, very good team. Really the only reason why he's here is because his Omicron still has that special condition. That's not his Omicron. Has that special condition that if a Galactic Legend is on the enemy's side, this is not active. So he honestly could be higher. He should be higher up in this list if that weren't true, but it is. So he is really limited to beating teams like CLS, to beating teams like Maul, to beating teams like, I actually don't really like him against Grievous, to beating teams like Bounty Hunter, like the really good Bounty Hunters. I've actually done, I think, all those that I just listed. So he's very versatile. He's very good on offense. He has a lot of potential on defense as well. Dash, pretty darn good. Again, a lot of defensive viability, and we're seeing kind of a reoccurring theme here with speed, if I'm being honest. Dash, again, is in that same line as Echo, as well as Kyle Katarn, where if he can go first, he can really disrupt things. He does have some viability on offense too. The AI is really dumb, and they have a tendency to not kill Vandor. Next up is the Sith quintuplets, or the Sith triumvirate. I really wanted to rank them higher, and maybe I should have. The reason why they're here is because they beat a good amount of these teams. Again, that's kind of what it's classifying our B tier teams. But I think the thing that separates the Sith Triumvirate from a lot of the rest of these teams is they don't just beat a few, they beat tons. They don't have just viability against one or two teams, kind of like we talked about our A tier teams. They have viability against certain Galactic Legends. Traya beats so much stuff. The amount of teams that she is able to counter, she is a very, very good jackknife on offense, and even isn't that bad on defense either. So she's going to be here. I would like for her to be higher, and maybe that's something I can change my mind on. But just basically by the fact that she can't really beat Galactic Legends unless you're doing something crazy like R9 Scion, which, you know, as you can see, we're not. It's kind of there. So now we start to get into a lot of teams that I don't have properly geared. I've done still quite a bit of research on them to see kind of where they stand. I talked to some people who do have max rosters, and just from what I've seen them do on defense against me to kind of know where they're at. But yeah, this should be really motivation for everyone to not feel bad if you don't have half the teams we've listed now. Like, everybody's roster, for the most part, is a work in progress. We all have things that we should be working towards, and we're getting there. But yeah, so Aiden is next up on the list. Again, she has pretty big potential here. She can beat a lot of Maul teams. She can beat CLS really stinking handily, and that's kind of what identifies her. And she also beats like every single one of these other teams here in the B tier team. Very, very good. And also, you probably shouldn't keep her here, but she is viable at this level against like Mon Mothma teams. I think I have beaten a Mon Mothma team every single season with her. Not every single season, but almost every single match. Last 5v5 and a lot of the 5v5s before it. Next up is going to be Shorty and Adrad. I really can't make too many comments on these teams because, as you can obviously see, I'm not really using them. They're good, they're up and coming. We've seen a little bit of proof of concept here and there of what they're able to do, but overall, we're pretty sure they're going to be good. And one other thing I should mention now too, we're going to see a repeat of BB-8 and R2 and eventually the Resistance team down here. And the reason for that is, I know we said we weren't going to include Galactic Legends, but when you get your Galactic Legends, you are going to shift things around, and that JTR team is not going to exist. But speaking of which, moving on to the C tier teams. These teams are also good. They're not quite as good as the B tier teams nor the A tier teams, obviously, but they still have their place in the game. You know, if we want to go back and do some quick math again, you need 22 teams. If you take in the S tier, if you take in the A tier, the B tier, you only have 20 teams. So some of these teams are going to be necessary, and a lot of them can be very good. Like, I'm not saying these are not on the don't farm list. I think you should use caution with these when you're wanting to build things up for GAC meta as to what is going to be a very good value for you. But you shouldn't feel bad that you have them or use them, or you get away with a lot of matches with them. First Order and Resistance are going to be in here. These two teams are typically going to die once you get their Galactic Legends, but until then, the team is fairly decent. You can leave both of them on defense. I think the First Order has a lot more potential on offense ever since we got First Order TIE pilots. That it transforms the team a lot, and to be honest, Hux's AI defense is just really bad. He does terrible things, and this team gets very easily beat by bad batches, not even close. But if you take it on offense, you open up with a mass assist and you immediately delete a character. So again, still very good team. You're just probably going to lose the majority of it when SLKR comes around. JTR, it's basically the same thing. I've actually been having a lot of fun with her in Conquest because we're being, you know, quote unquote forced to use them right now, and I've had a lot of fun with her. Next up is going to be Night Sisters as well as Geonosians. They kind of fall in the same category. They counter each other both really well. They have an outside shot, and one of the things that really I think describes them, at least for my personal experience, and this is probably something to do with my gear levels, is they're really good cleanup teams. When you just can't get what you need down, and again, you know, you exactly maxed out like the best 22 teams or whatever, these are the ones that are going to come in and be really, really clutch in getting the rest of that team down. Next up is going to be the Grand Inquisitor. I don't like that I put him here. I really want him to be higher. The amount of data we have right now for what he's able to counter is not very good. Really the best value that I was looking at when I was looking over what he's able to do in GAC and just kind of talking to a few people is he really destroys Qui-Gon. Like that's his good trade right now. That's not great. Like, if the best thing he's doing right now is beating a B tier team, then he's a C tier team. I've been looking into the gas counter a little bit, which would bump him up to at least a B tier, but it's like a 64% success rate right now, and Inquisitors and Gath both have Datacron, so I don't know how much of that is accurate. I don't know how much of that is a learning curve. But so before you see that and just, you know, automatically disagree with me, which is fine if you do, and if you want to dislike, you know, that's your prerogative. But tell me what these guys can do. Like, again, I'm going to try to do this every few months or so. I would love to see them the B tier team next time. Like, tell me why they are not a C list team. Next up is Snack Bar. This is going to need the Omicron. This is good. It can time out some teams. Nest solos it. I personally don't think it's worth 2 Omicrons depending on what your Omicron budget looks like, but it's not bad. You can actually elevate this team hugely if you want to throw in CLS in there, but CLS is already listed as an A tier team, so if you put CLS in Nubaku with Akbar, you know, just consider them this maybe. And last but not least is Ewoks. Actually, they might be least here. So Ewoks get a lot of bad rap because most people gear them up as far as they need to for 3PO, and they stop and they kind of stay at this really bad gear level, and nobody puts good mods on them, and they either just stay on defense as a filler team. But for a lot of people who are building the roster and they're going after 3PO, they do kind of fit into the better teams, at least in the beginning. Like, we're going to get to the D tier here in a second. But especially if you give him the Omicron, you give Paplu the fast mods that he wants, they're going to be able to run circles around quite a few teams. It's actually very, very impressive. We have anyone who's been on the channel for any amount of time knows we have Kanako as them all relict. And what is it? Again, when you have, you know, R8, R9 murder bears, they're going to be able to beat things that murder bears typically wouldn't beat, but still, like, they have some viability as a C tier team. And last but not least, well, this is least, I shouldn't say that, is the D tier team. So these teams, I'm going to try not to crap on them as much as possible, but really what they exist to do right now is be filler teams. While you're working on your A tier teams, while you're working on your B tier teams, or while you're working on your C tier teams, these are things that you've geared up for whatever reason, and you're just sticking them there because you have nothing that is better than them. And that's not wrong for that time, but what I'm getting at here is, number one, you should not be over-investing in these teams. I guess I should probably show all of them. And you'll probably notice a pretty reoccurring theme here is most of them are the Galactic Legend garbage characters. Like, you have this Finn team that doesn't have like any good characters, the Maul Marauder Sidious team, the Rolo team, the Phasma team. Karth, I guess, is more so just for Darth Revan Malak. But these are teams that they're not going to get you very far. They might not even clean up something very well. Like, I know, like, Phasma has an outside shot at beating solo SLKRs. But these are the teams that you should really, again, if you're wanting to be competitive, you should really be working on phasing out of your roster. They're not things that you want to overinvest in. They're not things that you're going to want to take to the end. I mean, you can. Everybody should do what they want with the roster. That's their choice. But if you're wanting to get the most out of GAC competitively, to get better rewards, to climb the leaderboard, etc., these are teams to maybe not avoid, because again, they're really on the pathway to Galactic Legends, but at the same time, you should really be pushing these off your defense. You should be pushing these off your offense and be working towards teams that are in all these other tiers. So that is going to pretty much wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you everyone who watched. Please let me know in the comments, you know, what I got wrong, what team deserves to be where, why Inquisitors are not a C-level team. And yeah, if you'd like to see a Galactic Legend variation of this video as well, let me know. I'm not going to do the whole thing again, but I think maybe ordering out Galactic Legends in their own tier list would be cool. But thank you guys again for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, stay awesome.